And you, and you, and you, and you were there. Some of it wasn't very nice, but most of it was beautiful.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Bryan. Hello, listeners. How is everybody?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing okay. And I'm actually sitting about 20 feet from you. This is the first on site live recording where we're in your new digs down in San Antonio. And I happen to be in town
Yeah.
taking care of some business. And so we are recording an episode. But I'm kind of glad we have some distance between us because I don't want you to be able to physically hurt me when I tell you my story.
Oh no. I mean, after last week, where I had to, use my brain at least a little bit, and fail in the process, I'm already concerned.
Well, we want to thank you folks for getting in touch with us, for the rates, for the reviews, for checking out the websites. Whether you're a binge listener like Joe out in Shirts, Texas, who likes to listen when he's working on his lawn, uh, or Marvin in San Antonio who listens and every week, as does Brad out in the Bay Area, and we've got a new listener, Byron, out in LA, who is kind of picking and choosing what he's listening to as he goes through the catalog. Welcome aboard. Thanks for listening to us.
Absolutely. And please like and subscribe and do those things on whatever platform you're listening on. Go ahead and give us 5 stars if you don't mind, and go ahead and shoot us a review or a comment or a question. Or if you have a curse word you want us to look into some week, we can do that as well. Just fire it off and we will try to respond.
Cool. I believe I go first. This is an even numbered episode, so I get to go first.
You are good to go.
Bryan, I want to talk to you today about the American Chautauqua movement. Are you familiar with this?
No idea.
Okay. The
Chautauqua. Okay.
Chautauqua. Yeah, and we'll get into
Okay.
what that means in a moment. But the Chautauqua movement lasted from 1874 to 1924. And the last 20 of years of that was what they call the heyday of the tent Chautauqua. And allow me to quote from one of my favorite books, Robert Pirsig's Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. I buy this book every now and then, I read it and give it away to someone who hasn't read it. So I picked this up to go over his style of Chautauqua. And before I knew it, I'd read 84 pages in it. So I've got to really watch myself when I read this book because I can really lose myself in it. Robert Pirsig says, I would like to talk in depth about things that seem important. What is in mind is a sort of Chautauqua. That's the only name I can think for it. Like the traveling tent show Chautauqua that used to move across America, an old time series of popular talks intended to edify and entertain, improve the mind, and bring culture and enlightenment to the ears and thoughts of the hearer. The Chautauquas were pushed aside by faster paced radio, movies, and television, and it seems to me the change was not entirely an improvement. Perhaps because of these changes, the stream of national consciousness moves faster now and is broader, but it seems to run less deep. Now, this idea of a Chautauqua, a place where you could go to edify yourself, to hear a speech maybe on religion or science or other topics, or maybe watch part of a play or listen to a recital. It starts with the Lyceum, which you may have heard of, which dates to the 1820s, and it lasted until the Civil War. And this is a series of kind of homegrown lectures that folks would put together in a rural area as a form of almost continuing education, or in some cases, the only adult education some folks would get. So that's where the Lyceum started in America. And of course, like a lot of things, the Civil War ended it. So as we get into the 1870s, the Chautauqua movement revived this idea of getting together to discuss big ideas in big ways. And this occurred in Lake Chautauqua, New York. And this is sometimes known as the Mother Chautauqua, and the little Chautauquas that came later were known as the daughter Chautauquas. But it was an attempt at betterment through intellectual and spiritual pursuits. There might be scientific lectures, religious activities, musical performances, dramatic readings and plays, sports and physical activities. Lake Chautauqua one summer, for example, had a baseball game every day at 3 o'clock.
Great.
I kind of like to think of this as a carnival of the mind, but carnival is kind of scary. Carnivals can be scary. And circus of the mind, I believe, is a Vedic term, so I don't want to use that. So I think Chautauqua, like Pirsig, is probably the best way to describe this. It's sort of an ecumenical Christian religion that's throughout. You might have Methodist speakers, evangelicals. You might have people who are speaking more to the American character as opposed to religious themes. But this idea was started, the idea of the tent Chautauqua was started by a guy named Keith Vaughter and Roy Ellison, later by a fellow named White. So a lot of these are known as the Ellison White years. They started a tent Chautauqua where it would caterpillar from town to town. So let's say you start in one town, your day one performers, when they're done, they immediately get on a train and go to the next town and start a day one in a new city. And meanwhile, in the old city, day two is going. So you kind of jump your way across America, inching your way across
Nice,
like a caterpillar. Yeah. And for 20 years, this tent model flourished in America using the railways mainly, to bring to rural areas this idea of community education and getting together to discuss big ideas and big things. Among some of the lecturers were Drew Pearson, not the wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys, but the the famous Washington columnist who wrote about politics in his Washington merry-go-round, a fervent anti-McCarthyite, could not stand Joe McCarthy. Drew Pearson lectured with some of these when he was a younger man. Jane Addams of Hull House in Chicago, Eugene V. Debs, Theodore Roosevelt, William Howard Taft, Woodrow Wilson, Walter Lippmann, the great Walter Lippmann. If you've studied any communication history, you might recognize that. As you might recognize Ida Tarbell, one of the great journalists from the early part of the century, and Edna Ferber. Now, two of the biggest people that I want to talk about, one you've probably heard of and one you know of. Have you ever heard of Russell Conwell?
No.
Russell Conwell was a Baptist minister, and he was a Yale graduate, and he had 3 separate enlistments in the Union Army during the Civil War. He would get injured, then he signed right back up. He started off as an enlisted man and wound up a lieutenant colonel by the time the war was over. And he gave a very famous lecture, and he gave it some 6,000 times on the Chautauqua circuit. It was called Acres of Diamonds. And while this isn't as graspy as, say, the prosperity movement in evangelical religions, it focused on the pursuit of wealth through hard work. And he referred to the inheritors of wealth, folks who had generational wealth, as poor, weak, and lily-fingered. It was all about hard work, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, getting hard work done, and reaping the rewards financially. He made about anywhere between $100 and $500 a lecture. He would take out his expenses. Yeah, right. And he would take his expenses out, his room and board, wherever he was staying, his meals. The remainder of the fee would go to a promising young man. It was a young man who was attending college as a form of scholarship. So this guy was about kind of giving back as well. From an excellent book I read for this particular piece I'm doing here, Victoria Case and some contributions by her husband, Robert Orman Case. We called it Culture, the Story of Chautauqua from 1948. I used the Kindle edition. Case says that this arrangement that Conwell made of sending money back was the Ivy League's single greatest contribution to the youth of rural America. Probably still true. And he's best known, Russell Conwell, is he founded a little place called Temple College in Philadelphia, which eventually became Temple University. So that was kind of his contribution to it. And this idea that Acre of Diamonds, this would be a generational thing where, like, over the 20-year period, one guy had heard it when he was in his late teens, so he brought his son 10 years later to hear the same speech. That's how popular this was. Now, the second fella here, that was one of the biggest lecturers for the Chautauqua circuit, at least for the Ellison White Chautauquas, was a fellow by the name of William Jennings Bryan. And I'm sure we all recognize that name. An American orator, lawyer, 3-time presidential candidate. His fame began really in the 1896 speech at the Democratic National Convention. This is something, I think the first place I ever heard this was our old drama teacher, John O'Neill, was talking about this speech where he rallied against the gold standard. William Jennings Bryan, not our old high school teacher, John O'Neill. Where he said, "You shall not press upon the brow of labor this crown of thorns. You shall not crucify mankind upon this cross of gold." He felt that silver was a much better way to back our money system in America. And he, as I said, he failed 3 times to become president, but he did try. He was by far the most popular and highest paid Chautauqua lecturer. And he became entwined with the fate of the Chautauquas. Case points out, they were born in the same time period of America, and they died the exact same year, 1924. At the time of his death, he had been some 4 days removed, William Jennings Bryan, from the famous Scopes monkey trial on
Oh, wow.
evolution, which he won, but he died 4 days later.
Wow.
There were attempts to spread this idea of the Chautauqua to other parts of the world. The Canadian attempt, and I love this. Shout out to my sister-in-law Veronica, who's a persnickety Canadian, marked by the most Canadian response ever with not liking the term Chautauqua. They said, "Well, we like this idea, but we don't like the name Chautauqua because it didn't have any correlation. They couldn't trace it anywhere."
Right.
So
Sure.
instead, they referred to these events as Canadian fall festivals.
Uh-huh.
The Australian and New Zealand campaigns were an absolute disaster for a variety of reasons. They never quite took off. There were some labor issues with Australia and New Zealand. They didn't like the idea that these guys would come in and take their money basically back to America once they did their stuff. So that didn't really fail. And by 1924, it had started to die out because of radio, because of other things, because there was an explosion of other people copying it. And quite frankly, because of, I guess you might say, a lot of urban intellectuals found the movement to be simplistic and condescending. And ultimately, the voice of the people became kind of the standard. Lesser lectures were introduced, and all of these things contributed to the end of the American Chautauqua as we knew it. Now, there was a brief mini revival of the Chautauqua movement in the late 1970s, in, of all places, New York City's East Village. It was centered around, do you remember CBGB, the punk rock venue?
Course,
yeah, it was centered around the music venue CBGB, and one band in particular stood out as being the epitome of this style of Americana.
Ramones?
No, Brian, not at all. Okay, Sherman, haven't you ever heard of Chautauqua Heads?
Oh, seriously? Huh.
No, I'm fucking with you. No.
You're fucking okay. It was like,
that was my Mr. Peabody. That was my Mr. Peabody joke.
You nailed me.
I strained forever to come up with a pun of Chautauqua Heads. See what I'm doing there?
Yeah,
okay.
I gotcha.
This is when I'm glad you're in the other room, so you can't hit me. Now, there are still destination Chautauquas today. We have one, well, I was going to say not far from here, but when I'm back home in Colorado, we have one up in Boulder called the Colorado Chautauqua. It began life in 1898 as the Texas-Colorado Chautauqua Association. And that was an attempt to provide summer curriculum for Texas teachers, but put them in a much cooler climate.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of suffering through something in the middle of a Texas summer. It was a whopping $75 for a 6-week session, but that it did include lectures, room and board, food, and train fare from within a 100-mile radius of Fort Worth. So it was a chance for young educators to get better educated by coming up to Colorado for a month and a half.
Right, sure.
There's a group called the New Old Time Chautauqua, and I think it's based out of New York State. It just finished July tour, so it was a touring Chautauqua in areas of Washington State. And of course, the mother of them all is still there, Lake Chautauqua, New York. And I think we know the recent history of this. You know what happened there recently?
No.
On August 12th, author Salman Rushdie was attacked at the Mother Chautauqua in New York. Yep.
That's where this term rang a bell a little bit. I couldn't. Okay, I got it now. Okay,
this is just almost a month ago. It left him on a ventilator. I believe he's off the ventilator, but I think he did lose sight in one eye.
Right.
And it was a horrible assault, and everybody looked at it for what it was. And it was a horrible assault on this author and thinker and lecturer and educator. But it's also an assault on the whole institution of the Chautauqua itself. This idea of getting together as a public community to learn something different. You could argue it was just as much an attack on public intellectualism and the free exchange of ideas, the free exchange of enlightenment and education, as it was an attack. Now, to him, it's a serious attack, but it can be both.
A tad
right?
more personal, yeah.
It can be both. And I guess where I look at Chautauqua is, I guess the critical way to think about things is, was this egalitarian in its nature? Because I can't get any information, or I couldn't from what I looked up, on, say, if folks of color were allowed to attend these, because we're dealing with the Reconstruction period. we're dealing with. It is in the north,
probably
so,
not. I mean, probably it was probably all white men, just based on history and that time period. But
yeah, and so I don't know to what extent it reached out to folks who wouldn't normally be able to be part of that particular public venue. But I guess my question is how can we make the end goal of the Chautauqua a reality outside of the modern Chautauquas we have? This idea that we have this civil discourse. In the words of Victoria Case and her husband Richard Case, how are we able to express the public or civic consciousness? And their argument is that when the Chautauqua died, we really started to lose that sense of public and civic duty and consciousness to one another.
mm-hmm.
And I think the obviously parallel, I mean, this is kind of the way the internet was sold to us, right? That it was going to be a place that was a free market of ideas. Doesn't matter what you look like, who you are. If you come to
levels the playing field for everyone, right?
Well, yeah, well, and of course we know that that's never the case with new media. I mean, it always goes through a cycle of the technocrats and the very wealthy have access to things first. And I'm sure the Chautauqua, to go to the Chautauqua and Mother Chautauqua, New York in 1874, it wasn't cheap, right? I mean, it cost money and time to go there. So it's not like it's this all consuming chance for everyone to be able to express themselves and participate. I mean, the only media I can think of that were able to do that really for folks were the movies and the penny press, when the penny press came around. Mm-hmm. That was affordable from the vast majority for the vast majority of people. Anyway, that's a brief look at the American Chautauqua. I think it's one of the great institutions that because we think about traveling circuses, traveling carnivals. How about the traveling Chautauqua as we had it once upon a time, where you could go every day and hear a new public lecture. You could participate and watch a play, hear a music recital you might normally hear people talk from around the world. Anyway, that's what I have to say about the American Chautauqua. I think it's something that I probably would have tried to go to if I were living in 1874, 75.
Oh, right, absolutely. I mean, public discourse and a free exchange of ideas. The only thing that comes to mind that might be somewhat similar, and I say only somewhat, there is the Texas Lyceum, and you mentioned Lyceum, yeah,
right.
So the Texas Lyceum is something of a springboard for folks who have, I think, political aspirations. I've known 2 or 3 people, actually Eddie Rodriguez, who's the Texas state rep for Near East Austin, is a buddy of mine. He's been very involved in Texas Lyceum. And I have a couple other friends that worked in public policy who, I mean, it was sort of this traveling event, sort of like the state Democratic convention, where there'd be a weekend event in different cities that was more broad than just political affiliations and those types of things. It was more intellectually based, with a slight bent toward politics and public policy, perhaps. But it was definitely much more of a exchange of ideas. Let's all get together and try to learn something. And it was I judge it's much less about drawing boundaries, drawing lines, being partisan, and more about sharing ideas and being cooperative.
That's an excellent example. I hadn't come across the Lyceum, but it's hard for me to distinguish between the two. I think the original Lyceum was much more homegrown, like in the town they did it, as opposed to the Chautauqua, where it would eventually come to your town, or you would have it travel to their town to visit one of the Chautauqua sites. So the Lyceum, I mean, I still think it's an excellent idea, and I didn't know about the Texas Lyceum. That's spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, in this day and age, especially, I mean, anything that is a free and exchange of information that isn't about me versus you, I think is a worthy endeavor, because everything. I mean. More now than at any point in either one of our lives, our battle lines are just drawn on absolutely fucking everything, and there's no nuance, no subtlety, no gray. There's if you like the Cowboys, if you don't like the Cowboys, you're pawn scum. There's no, I mean, everything, even sports allegiances have this crazy fervency to it. It's just insane.
Yeah, and I would like to get to that idea of a more verdant and fair society, and it would be nice to see if we could have something along the lines of this that could exist again someday. It would be nice,
Well,
be it in Lyceum.
you're obviously a socialist, but
Oh, well, I am. Be it in Lyceum form or Chautauqua form. My sources for this piece were Robert Pirsig's 1974 book, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, an Inquiry into Values, the William Morrow Modern Classics edition, Victoria Case and Richard Orman Case 1948 book, We Called It Culture, The Story of Chautauqua on Kindle, Chautauqua.com, which is the Colorado Chautauqua, Chautauqua.org, which is the new old Chautauqua I mentioned, one that traveled through Washington State this last summer, and chq.org, the Mother Chautauqua Institution in Lake Chautauqua, New York, and Wikipedia for some basic facts and ideas. And that is one of my ongoing fascinations, not only with Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, but this idea of the American free exchange of ideas in the form of Chautauqua.
awesome. That's amazing.
And one really bad Talking Heads joke, which fell really, really flat.
Which I was not thinking. I forgot who was talking to me for for just a second.
At some point, he's going to do something really stupid, like a pun on 70s new wave punk bands. It'll be awful.
Yes, it's virtually assured. All right, we're gonna shift gears here. You ready?
Yep.
It's time for the Dream Idiot's curse word of the week.
All right. So I don't mean to offend, but would you mind if I called you Mr. Irrelevant?
No, but
if I dubbed you Mr. Irrelevant 2023?
no. I wouldn't find it. I wouldn't find it offensive at all. I mean,
Okay.
if it's the term I'm thinking of.
Well,
Now,
in your case, I guess it would be Doctor Irrelevant. This is ringing a bell, is it?
It is. It's a term used to describe certain fellas picked in the NFL draft, right? It's the NFL
Yes.
draft.
So, I had not heard this until recently. So last year's Mr. Irrelevant was a guy named Brock Purdy, who was a quarterback drafted by Washington. I went back a few years. I mean, there's virtually no one on this list of Mr. Irrelevants who are people you will have heard of. 1991, the word went to a guy named Larry Wanky. I don't know what position he played, but I just wanted to say Wanky. It's a good thing his first name wasn't Harry, I guess. And the only one that might ring a bell, I always want to say his last name is Suckup. I know his name is actually Ryan Sukup or Sukup.
Oh yeah, he just won a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, he won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs a couple of years ago. Played with I almost said the Marlins. He's a talented guy. If he played with the Marlins, he played with the Ravens, I believe, for a while as well. And so, if you are Mr. Irrelevant, you are the very last NFL pick every year. And if you win this dubious award, you and your family are flown out to California and spend a week at Disneyland and have all these weird celebrations. It's not really even formally sanctioned by the NFL as far as I can tell. It's this guy started it, and it's sort of informally connected to the NFL, but players and even franchises kind of compete to get once you're down there at the dregs of the draft, they will actually sort of compete to get the last pick until the commissioner weighed in a few years ago and said, yeah, cut it out, just pick your pick and you're good to go. So Mr. Irrelevant. The other prize that is similar to this, which I didn't know about, is the Tour de France has the yellow jersey for the overall leader. The polka dot jersey is for King of the Mountains. There's I think it's like a hot pink jersey if you're the leader in sprints, but there also is a competition for the person to come in dead last in the Tour de France. And once riders in the Tour de France realize that they're out of contention for the more prominent awards, they will engage in all kinds of tactics to try to finish last, including trying to sneak off, fall off the back and then stop and wander into a bar and hang out for a few minutes. So anyway, apparently, some folks do. Once a victory is deemed impossible, they will happily take last place. I just thought that
So
was sort of
they're pulling a reverse Rosie Ruiz. Instead of
yes,
cheating in the marathon, you're cheating to come in last.
cheating to lose. So, I don't know, just sort of interesting and sort of funny to me. So
Yeah, that's Professor irrelevant to you. So
there you go. Okay.
that's a good one.
So back a few weeks ago, episode 28, I think we talked about the opening lines of novels, and I rattled off a whole bunch of them and quizzed you a little bit on some of those. And there was one of those that I was convinced was the opening line for a novel, but I couldn't find it. And then I did happen to stumble across a reference to it. So there is a line in there's an opening line of one of the chapters, not the first chapter. One of the chapters in Casino Royale begins with the sentence, "James lit his 70th cigarette of the day."
Oh, okay.
I was convinced that one of them actually started. James Bond stepped outside and whatever, but I didn't have it right. But someone wrote in and told me the correct answer to that. But along those same lines, we're not doing books. We're gonna do. I'm gonna run down a few of the better known, more memorable, more whatever closing lines from motion pictures. Some of these you will know.
Ooh, okay.
Some of them might stump you, although you keep surprising me with random shit that you know. So I have no idea whether you will do well on this or not. So
Well, that was my minor in college. I was torn between psychology and then random shit.
Random shit.
Yeah.
So a few of these are pretty obvious. Okay, so the line is, "Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship."
That's Casablanca.
Uh-huh. Okay, the line is, "The horror, the horror."
Oh, that's
Bambi? No.
oh no. That's is that Apocalypse Now?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. All right.
So those are better known, perhaps more obvious. Okay, the line is, "I never had any friends later on like the ones I had when I was 12. Jesus, does anyone?"
Stand by Me.
Oh, he's 3 for 3. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so this one's a little bit longer. The line is, "I have to wait around like everyone else. Can't even get decent food. Right after I got here, I ordered some spaghetti with marinara sauce, and I got egg noodles and ketchup. I'm an average nobody. I get to live the rest of my life like a schnook."
That would be the great late Ray Liotta from Goodfellas. That's
Yep.
the last line of Goodfellas. Yeah.
This one I did not know, and so it seems a little bit more obscure. The line is, "A man's got to know his limitations."
Old Man in the Sea. I have no idea.
It's Clint Eastwood. Magnum Force. That line is fairly famous, but I've never heard of Magnum Force before in my entire life.
It was, I think, the second Dirty Harry movie or third.
Yeah, I knew it was in the
Yeah.
Dirty Harry. Like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's like the least. Yeah, that one's not one people talk about a lot. Man's got to know his limitations. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, next one. The line is, "I'm the boss. I'm 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 the boss. 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 Boss."
No idea.
And
You
it's
got
not
me.
boss. It's not Boss Baby. Raging Bull.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. The line is, "I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner."
That is Silence of the Lambs, right? Sir Anthony
Yep.
Hopkins. Okay.
Yep. Correct. Okay. The line is, "Nobody's perfect." Great film, older film.
Oh, that is oh well, nobody's perfect. It's Some Like It Hot.
Yeah.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
Some Like It Hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a great film.
Okay. Next one. The line is, you met me in a very strange time in my life." And this movie, when it first came out, I did not like it, but I came to like it a lot. 10 years later.
Man, I can't place it. I know the line, but I can't.
That is.
It's not Fight Club, is it? It's not Fight
Yeah, it
Club.
is. Yep.
Oh, it is?
It is.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yep.
Step backwards into a lucky pile of horse shit for that one.
All right. Next one. The line is, I was cured all right.
Oh, that's Clockwork Orange, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, you're crushing this. I've lost track of. I think you missed one.
I think I missed two.
The line is, Mein Führer, I can walk.
Oh, that's Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Yeah.
Yep. Shit, you're crushing it. Okay. The line is, this place makes me wonder, which would be worse, to live as a monster or to die as a good man?
Young Frankenstein. I have no idea.
I have a great line. I have not seen this movie, Shutter Island.
Oh, I've not seen that. I've read the book, but I've not seen the movie. Okay, yeah, that's Leonardo DiCaprio's in that, I think, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I forget Tim Robbins' movie. I forget who else. Okay, the line is, one more thing, Sophie. Is she aware her daughter is still alive?
That is from Kill Bill Volume 1.
Yep.
Is that right?
Damn.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. Damn. Okay.
I just
all right.
rewatched that one because one of my sons was like, "Oh, I want to watch a Tarantino film." Okay, let's just jump right in with Kill Bill. So, okay.
That's that's probably fine. They are his stuff is just like, I remember watching like Pulp Fiction, just thinking, could this be more violent? I don't think so. All right, next one. The line is, life is a state of mind. And I know this is a movie you have seen and a movie you like.
Life is a state of mind.
Main character is walking across a pond or a lake at the end.
Oh, it's being there.
Yeah. I gave you that.
Yeah,
one.
I wouldn't have gotten it if you hadn't given. Yeah, it. I thought I was maybe going to go for Whose Life Is It Anyway, or one of the more depressing movies, but yeah, Being There is.
Well, Being There's
can't believe I missed that.
Pretty depressing.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of like media stuff going on, and then you hear he walks off. That's good stuff.
All right, the line is, I'm not even going to swat that fly. I hope they are watching. They'll see, and they'll know, and they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
Monster?
Oh, good guess. No.
Mary Poppins.
The Sound of Music. No.
That was my next guess.
Psycho.
Oh, damn it. Okay.
This one you'll know. No
I'm
pressure.
flaming out at the end, Brian.
You're petering out. You maniacs, you blew it up. Damn you. God damn you all to hell.
God damn you all to hell. That's Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, it's a stupid fucking movie. The stupid fucking Charlton. All right, next one. The line is,
sorry, go ahead.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you might miss it.
Bueller.
Yeah.
Bueller.
Right?
Bueller. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I think my favorite bit from that is when he says, "What's the score? It's tied. Oh, who's winning?" or something like that. The principal, when he's watching the Cubs game, what's the score? It's tied 1-1. Oh, who's winning?
All right, next one. Line is, Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part. Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part.
That would be Boogie Nights. No?
Nope.
Okay. What is it?
7.
Oh, damn it. I was going to rewatch that the other night.
It's a good movie.
Not that funny, but pretty good.
Yeah. So apparently I saw some interview in passing with I can't think what movie it would have been for, but it was an interview with Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie, I think. Or I can't think what movie they were in together recently, but whatever. And someone was asking Pitt what lines do fans run up and yell at you when they see you on the street. And he says that the one he gets apparently the most is people will see him or yell across the street, "What's in the box? What's in the box?"
Listener of the pod, Joe, once got in trouble. And Joe, I know you're listening to this, because an old buddy of ours, the late great Chaz, he really wanted to see Seven, so they went to go see it. And he told Joe, he said, "Look, Joe, I don't want any talking during this movie. I really want to see this. I don't know why, but I will get up if you start
Shut
talking.
up.
I will get up and move." And the credits start, and it says starring Brad Pitt, and Joe says, "Oh, Brad Pitt!" And Charles gets up and walks about five rows down and sits in the middle and just ignores him for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, fair enough.
He warned him. He warned him.
He deserved it. Yeah. All right. Next one. The line is, "What's in the box?"
7.
No.
Oh,
We already covered 7.
Scary Movie 2. I don't know.
Barton Fink.
Oh,
Great movie.
been a while since I've seen that one.
Yeah, but great film. Next one. All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close up.
That would be Sunset Boulevard.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and the line is, "I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are still truly good at heart."
The Diary of Anne Frank.
Yep, not that funny.
Or is that one kid in high school mispronounced it? The Dairy of Anne Frank. Do you remember that? When do we get out of here? When do we get out of here?
Yeah. Or as someone else we know kept referring to it as the diarrhea of Anne Frank. Next one is closing line, last line of this movie. The line is, "Fuck."
It's a Wonderful Life.
The Muppets Take Manhattan.
Oh, Kermit. Fuck. Yeah. I don't know.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh, okay. I've seen that exactly half a time.
Yeah, I can't. Anything with Tom Cruise, I have to avoid. So skip that one. And last one, no pressure. You'll know this one. The line is, "I hope I can make it across the border. I hope to see my friend and shake his hand. I hope the Pacific is as blue as it has been in my dreams. I hope."
I hope I can make it across the Pacific.
I hope I can make it across the border.
The
I
border.
hope to see my friend and shake his hand. I hope the Pacific is as blue as it has been in my dreams.
That would be Andy Dufresne. Shawshank Redemption. Okay.
Yep.
Man, I was about to say the flight log of Amelia Earhart or something really bad. I just then I heard Morgan Freeman's voice in my head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't really do impressions. Otherwise, I would have tried, but
I like to think I can, and then I can't. So I won't try that.
as we've shown on this podcast.
WC who? Fields? What?
What? All right, there you have it. I think you missed 4. I'd say out of.
I don't know.
It was
it got humiliating there in the middle.
Yeah. So
it is really great to have a final line that just capstones a novel or a film that just feels like a sometimes it's a punch to the gut, and other times it's it's just that amazing combination of words and moving pictures can just really knock you off your feet.
Right. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was working on a similar premise, and I was going to do one eventually on the opening lines of movies.
Well,
So yeah, I've got a list of exactly one. Um,
It was the best of times. It was the worst of knowing.
um, I'm trying to think of what it was, but I can't remember now. Yeah, just the way that film can be wrapped up, like the Ray Liotta bit at the end of Goodfellas is just absolutely perfect of everything that went wrong. So,
Right. Oh yeah.
yeah, good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Yeah. I have no idea what the last line of from Titanic was, but actually I do recall vividly seeing that film in the theater and walking out right afterwards. And I was walking right behind a mother with probably 14, 15-year-old daughter. And obviously Titanic was 3.5 hours long, 4 hours long. And overheard the daughter say to the mom, "If I'd known the Titanic was going to sink at the end, I wouldn't have come." Student of history.
It's like that Simpsons episode where the kids are running out for summer dismissal, and the history teacher comes out and says, "Wait, we didn't finish our unit on World War II. We won!" And the kids just go crazy.
All
Okay,
right,
well,
folks.
yeah, that was way more fun than the that other guy that comes on here and does those stupid college rhyming games. That was much better than that dumbass rhyming game one.
Yeah, that one last week's gave me a migraine. I was like, oh,
Okay, folks, we got some really cool stuff. I don't know what Bryan's got in the shoot, but he's always got great stories. I've got two really cool ones coming up, some historical aspects to it, and I've got one that is kind of, I won't call it a sequel to one of Bryan's stories, but it's a sidequel, I guess. Is that what you call the it's tangentially related. Let's call it a sidequel episode, and I'll probably do that one next week. So yeah, stay tuned. Thanks again for your help me out, Bryan, for your ratings, for your reviews, for the emails. Thank you so much for sending that in. You can probably tell I'm dead on my feet, but anyway, thanks so much for listening.
yeah, absolutely. Keep on keeping on and liking and subscribing and sharing and doing that stuff. You can email us if you want to, just to say hey at dreamidiotspodcast@gmail.com, and we'll be back again real soon.
Be good to each other.